The ship was dying. The freighter's lights flickered weakly, running on the last bits of power from its failing core. The hull was cracked in 3 places, venting thin trails of atmosphere into the void. The engines were silent. No sound, no movement. Only the quiet hum of machines trying to keep the crew alive. Inside, 10 beings of the Zalkari species huddled in the dim corridor near the bridge. Their insect-like limbs twitched nervously, and their mandibles clicked in quiet panic. Captain Sorek, tall and thin, with dark blue carapace, stared at the glowing panel in front of him. A single message pulsed on the screen, waiting for his command. Send distress beacon? He hesitated. They had already argued for hours. Sending the beacon could save them or kill them. Every species in the galaxy used distress beacons. Pirates might hear it, but so might patrol ships, allies, even passing merchants. But in this region of space, there was a far greater danger. If they sent that signal, there was a small chance that humans would hear it. Sorek's mandibles clicked. Slowly, humans. No Zalkari had ever seen one in person, but the stories spread across the stars were always the same. They were chaos wrapped in flesh, violence in a human shape. They didn't answer distress calls to help. They answered because it meant a fight. And when they fought, they didn't stop until nothing was left but ash and silence. One of his crew, young navigator Kirill, spoke nervously. Captain, our life support will not last. If we do not send the signal, we die here. If we do send it, maybe someone comes before the air runs out. Or maybe they come. Another crew member hissed. His name was Orvik, a gruff engineer. He had seen human war footage on the galactic nets. Whole fleets burned in seconds. Planets left in smoking ruin because someone made the mistake of firing at a human ship. If they hear us, we won't be rescued. We'll just be witnesses to a storm. Captain Sorek closed his compound eyes for a long moment. He thought of the ship's condition. No FTL, no sublight engines, no way to move. They were a corpse drifting through the endless dark. Finally, he raised one clawed hand. Send it, he said quietly. If death is coming, at least let it. Find us quickly. Kirill's claws danced over the console, and the signal pulsed into the void. A repeating cry in every major galactic language. This is the Zalkari freighter Oath of Dawn. Engines offline. Core failing. Requesting immediate aid. Any ship, any species, respond. The bridge fell into silence. Only the faint beeping of the transmitter echoed through the room. One by one, the crew drifted to different corners, staring out at the endless black. Some prayed to old gods. Others just waited. Hours passed. The ship grew colder. They had turned off most systems to save life support, leaving the corridors lit only by soft blue emergency lights. The darkness outside felt alive, like something was watching. Then the sensors beeped. Kirill's head snapped toward the display. Contact, he whispered. His mandibles twitched. But it's not responding to hails. It's moving fast. Very fast. Captain Sorek moved to the console, peering at the faint data scrolling across the screen. An object was approaching, from far beyond the edge of the system. No transponder signal. No identification. Just a massive energy signature, growing stronger by the second. Orvik leaned closer. It's no patrol ship. No freighter. The size. He stopped, staring at the numbers. That can't be right. It's almost the length of a dreadnought. The crew exchanged nervous clicks. Dreadnoughts were capital warships, the kind that only empires fielded. None of them should be out. Here, in the void between civilized sectors. Try hailing again, Sorek ordered. Kirill sent a burst transmission. No reply. The object kept coming. A straight-line course, not slowing down. It moved like a predator that already knew where its prey was. Is it human? Someone whispered. Nobody answered. Minutes crawled by. The energy reading doubled, tripled. The ship was still in FTL, closing the distance in ways that made no sense. No normal vessel could maintain that kind of acceleration without tearing itself apart. Yet the readings didn't lie. Finally, the object dropped out of FTL, less than 1,000,000 kilometers from the Oath of Dawn. The ship's sensors struggled to form a clear image. Static filled the monitors, like the very space around the vessel rejected being scanned. Then, slowly, the image resolved. The alien crew froze. It was a ship black as the void, its hull covered in angular plating like the scales of some deep sea predator. It had no visible lights except for thin crimson lines that pulsed like veins across its surface. Its size dwarfed the Oath of Dawn, and it was old. The design didn't match any human ship seen in over 2 centuries. But every Zelkari on the bridge had seen fragments of footage, old warnings, grainy clips traded on the shadow nets. Orvik's mandibles clicked once, softly. That's impossible. Those ships were destroyed. They were outlawed by the humans themselves. That's a war relic. The crew said nothing. The only sound was the faint hum of the freighter's air recyclers and the distant groan of stressed metal. Then a low vibration rolled through the Oath of Dawn. Not from impact, not from weapons fire. It felt like the very void itself was resonating. The relic ship was doing something. Charging something. Captain Sorek's claws gripped the edge of the console. Can we move? No, Orvik said quietly. Engines are still dead. We're just here. The alien crew turned back toward the black vessel. Its crimson lines flared brighter, pulsing in slow rhythm. The sensors lit up with a new alert. Warning. Unknown energy wave detected. Origin. Hostile ship. Impact in 15 seconds. Kirill's mandibles trembled. Are they firing? No, Orvik said. His voice was low, almost a whisper. That's not a weapon charge. That's a scan. They're looking at us. On the monitors, a red pulse spread out from the human ship, rippling across the system like a shockwave. Planets, asteroids, debris all scanned, tagged, catalogued. The pulse passed through the Oath of Dawn like a cold wind, making every electronic system flicker and every living being shiver. Then silence. The human relic just sat there, motionless, its crimson veins dimming slightly. Captain Sorek could feel every eye on him. His crew waited for orders, for comfort, for anything that might ease the crushing weight in the room. But he had no words. The comms console flickered suddenly, breaking the silence. A voice came through calm, deep and unmistakably human. Distress signal received, it said. The tone was flat, almost bored. Remain where you are. Assistance is coming. The transmission ended. No identification, no promise of safety. Just those words. Kirill swallowed hard, his mandibles scraping against each other. Captain, do you think they mean to help us? Captain Sorek stared at the black ship, its shadow blotting out the distant starlight. No, he said softly. I think they mean to find us. Outside, the human vessel began to move, slow at first, then accelerating toward the Oath of Dawn like a predator ready to strike. Its crimson lights burned brighter, casting long shadows across the freighter's bridge. And in that moment, every Zelkari aboard understood something their ancestors had always whispered. When humans come, they do not arrive as friends. They arrive like a force of nature. The black ship closed the distance like a predator gliding through deep waters. The Oath of Dawn floated helpless, dead in space, while its crew watched the monster approach on their screens. There was no mistaking it now. This was no fleet, no convoy, no official rescue. It was one vessel alone, but larger than any single ship should be. Its design was alien, yet unmistakably human. Brutal lines, sharp angles, hull plating layered in overlapping slabs, as though built to survive. The heat of suns themselves, the faint, pulsing crimson lines running along its surface, were the only signs of life on its dark frame. It did not broadcast a signal, no request for identification, no greeting. It just existed, a silent shadow of death, blotting out starlight. As it drifted closer, Kirel, the young navigator, whispered what everyone feared. That is not a normal ship. Orvik, the engineer, didn't even turn from his console. His mandibles clicked softly as he studied the hull pattern on the display. I've seen Halas, old ones, before the human treaties, before the council forced them to dismantle their nightmare fleets. He turned slowly, his compound eyes reflecting the dull red glow on the monitor. This is one of them. A Warform-class dreadship. They were supposed to be destroyed. Every record says so. Captain Sorik stared at the approaching shadow, his claws gripping the arm of his chair. If this is truly a relic, why is it here? And why answer our signal? No one answered. The black ship came to a stop a few kilometers away. On the monitors, its size was overwhelming. The Oath of Dawn looked like a drifting toy compared to it. The crew could see now that parts of the hull bore faint scars, gouges, and burns from battles centuries old, still unrepaired, as though the ship carried its wounds proudly. A faint vibration trembled through the freighter's hull. Not a weapon impact. Not even a tractor beam. Something else. The human ship was doing something again. Energy surge, Kirel said, his voice tight. Massive, but not directed at us. It's cycling through its systems, charging something. The lights flickered across the freighter. Every console dimmed for a moment as the sensors picked up a field, faint but growing. Then, from the black ship, a deep hum filled the void. It was low, so low the Zelkari felt it in their bones rather than heard it. The crimson veins along the dreadships. Hull brightened. A wave of static rolled across the Oath of Dawn systems, making every screen flash warnings. Another scan? Orvik muttered, trying to stabilize the consoles. Kirill's mandibles twitched. This feels different. The hum grew louder. Then, without warning, the dreadship released another pulse. A ripple of deep red energy expanded outward, washing over asteroids, derelict debris, and the Oath of Dawn itself. The freighter's lights cut out for a second, plunging the bridge into darkness. When they returned, every system readout showed the same thing. Data uplink established. Unknown host access. They're inside our systems, Orvik said, voice sharp. His claws clattered over his console, trying to block the intrusion. They're scanning our core files. Our cargo, our logs, our personal identifications, everything? Stop it, Captain Sorik ordered. I can't, Orvik snapped. They're overriding every firewall we have like it's not even there. On the main screen, the human dreadship turned slightly, its massive forward hull now aimed directly at the freighter. The faint glow of what could only be weapons arrays came alive along its edges. Kirill's mandibles trembled. Are they preparing to fire? No, Sorik said slowly, his voice a low growl. Not yet. This is intimidation. They want us to know we have no power here. As if to answer him, the comms flickered again. A voice filled the bridge. It was human calm, deep, and strangely dispassionate. Data received, it said. Cargo identified. Hostile parties detected within 5 million kilometers. Stand by. Do not attempt to move. We will handle this. The line cut. No questions. No explanation. Orvik looked to the captain. Hostile parties? What are they talking about? Our scanners haven't. Before he could finish, The Oath of Dawn sensors lit up. Multiple new signatures, dropping out of FTL on the far edge of the system. Tyrrell's claws darted over his controls, his eyes widening as he read the data. Pirate fleet, 12 ships, 2 cruisers, 6 raiders, and, gods, 4 boarding corvettes. They're here for us. They followed our signal. The crew froze. Pirates were a death sentence in their condition. With no engines, no defenses. The freighter would be gutted, and its crew sold into slavery, if they were lucky enough to live. But none of them were looking at the pirate ships now. All eyes turned back to the human dreadship. The massive vessel didn't move, not at first. It just sat there, like a predator waiting for the perfect moment. Its crimson veins dimmed and flared brighter, like a heartbeat quickening. The pirates hailed the Oath of Dawn. A harsh, guttural voice filled the comms. "Zelkari freighter, you have something that belongs to us. Power down all systems and prepare for boarding. Comply, and maybe you live." The crew didn't respond. They couldn't, because in that same instant, the human ship came alive. Black Vessel surged forward, engines roaring so loud through the vacuum that the Oath of Dawn's sensors registered the vibrations. Its hull split along hidden seams, revealing weapons arrays that had no visible barrels, no conventional design. Energy crackled along their edges like contained lightning. And the voice returned, calm and cold. "Do not transmit. Do not interfere. Observe only." The dreadship accelerated toward the pirate fleet. No warning shots, no demands. Just raw, unrelenting speed. The first pirate cruiser opened fire, hurling plasma volleys across the void. The dreadship didn't evade. Its hull shimmered briefly as the impacts vanished, absorbed into some kind of energy field dot, and then it struck back. The Zelkari crew didn't understand the weapon. It wasn't a beam. It wasn't a missile. It was something else. Space itself seemed to tear as a shimmering arc of red light swept across the pirate formation. One of the raiders simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no wreckage, just gone, as though erased from reality. The remaining ships scattered in panic, not another. Pulse followed. This time, a cruiser split in half without a sound, its 2 halves drifting apart, glowing along the perfect line of the cut. The pirates tried to return fire, but the dreadship moved with terrifying precision, sliding between shots like it could predict the attacks before they came. On the Oath of Dawn, no one spoke. The crew simply stared, their breathing shallow. As the human vessel dismantled the pirate fleet piece by piece, within minutes, only one ship remained, a small corvette, trying desperately to flee. The dreadship didn't fire. Instead, it unleashed a low-frequency pulse, and the fleeing ship's engines shut down instantly. The corvette drifted, powerless, as the black vessel turned away, returning slowly toward the Oath of Dawn. Orvik whispered, his voice barely audible. "That wasn't a battle. That was a slaughter." Captain Sorek's claws tightened on the armrest. His mandibles clicked softly as he whispered the thought none of them wanted to voice. They didn't come to save. "U.S.," he said. "They came for them. The pirates. We were just the bait." The dreadship stopped again, now hovering close enough that its shadow engulfed the freighter. The comms flickered one last time, the human voice cold and unfeeling. "Hostiles eliminated. Stand by for boarding. Do not resist." The line went dead. On the monitors, a hatch opened on the dreadship's underside. Figures began to emerge, armored, tall, and moving with machine-like precision as they crossed the void toward the Oath of Dawn. Their suits were black, with faint red lights glowing along their visors. Hero took a step back from his console, his mandibles trembling. They're coming here. What do we do, Captain?" Captain Sorek stared at the approaching forms, his chest tight with a feeling he hadn't felt in years. Fear, "We do nothing," he said quietly. "We wait, and we pray they only want information." Outside, the first human soldier reached the freighter's hull, planting a device that cut through the airlock like it wasn't there. A hiss of escaping air filled the corridor, and then the door opened. The airlock hissed open with a slow, grinding sound. Frost and vapor curled into the dimly lit corridor of the Oath of Dawn as the door slid aside. The Zelkari crew froze in place, their mandibles locked, their clawed hands trembling. Through the opening stepped the first human dot. It moved with the precision of a machine, each footfall silent, despite the heavy black armor it wore. The suit had no markings, no insignia, just plates of matte armor and glowing red lines running along its limbs. Its helmet was smooth, featureless except for a narrow, glowing visor shaped like a slit. Two more figures followed, identical, carrying long, angular weapons that seemed to hum faintly even in standby. The humans didn't speak as they entered. They scanned the corridor with small, hovering drones that floated out from their shoulders. Each drone emitted faint, rhythmic pulses of light as it mapped the ship. Captain Sorek stepped forward cautiously, his mandibles clicking in a controlled rhythm, a gesture of non-hostility among the Zelkari. This is Captain Sorek of the Oath of Dawn. We sent the distress signal. Our ship is crippled. We mean no. One of the humans turned toward him sharply. The gesture was so fast, so precise, it felt unnatural. A modulated voice came through its helmet, calm and flat. "Captain Sorek, you will lead us to your command center. Speak only when asked. Cooperate, and your crew will remain unharmed." The tone was not comforting. It was a command, not a request. Sorek glanced at his crew. They were frozen, antennae twitching nervously. Slowly, he nodded and turned, leading the humans toward the bridge. As they walked, the humans moved like shadows. Their weapons stayed low but ready, their heads turning with slow, calculated precision. Every corridor they passed was scanned by the hovering drones, which zipped away through hatches and ducts, mapping every inch of the freighter. When they reached the bridge, the human leader stepped forward, the others taking positions near the exits. The red glow from their visors cast long, thin lines across the room, making the Zelkari crew feel like prey under a predator's gaze. The human leader turned toward Orvek, the engineer. "Your ship's data has been copied. Cargo manifest. Confirms unauthorized items taken from the Cathari ruins on Delta 9. The voice was steady, almost bored. "We need details on who attacked you. Name, strength, location of their base." Orvik's mandibles twitched nervously. We were carrying old relics. Artifacts. Salvage, nothing dangerous. The pirates took everything. We don't know. Where they... A sharp, mechanical sound cut him off. One of the humans had raised its weapon slightly, the faint hum growing louder. The leader's visor tilted toward Orvik. "Answer directly. Where is their base?" Captain Sorek stepped between them quickly. "We do not know. They struck without warning. We had no chance to track them. We were only hauling trade goods, the artifacts. They were worthless to us." The human tilted its helmet slightly, as if considering. Then it spoke again, voice as calm as ever. "Your files indicate otherwise. The artifacts were classified. Human origin. Prohibited for transport outside of secured channels. You are in possession of contraband." The bridge went silent. Sorek's mandibles clicked once, sharply. "Contraband? We are traders. We did not know the artifacts were human-made. They were sold legally in the Laskari markets." The human didn't react. It simply turned its helmet toward the others and gave a subtle hand gesture. One soldier left the bridge immediately, the drones following it down the corridor. The leader turned back to Sorek. "You will cooperate with us. In exchange, your vessel will not be dismantled." You and your crew will be taken under human protection. Sorek's antennae twitched. He knew that phrase. Every species in the galaxy knew it. Under human protection did not mean safety. It meant ownership. It meant your choices no longer mattered. Kiro, the youngest crew member, finally spoke, his voice trembling. What happens if we refuse? The human tilted its head slightly, the glowing visor turning toward him. Refusal is not possible. The distress signal you sent placed you under Earth Command jurisdiction. You are now assets until your case is resolved. Orvik muttered under his breath, his mandibles scraping together. Assets? Or property? The human didn't acknowledge the comment. It simply gestured toward the main screen, which lit up, with an image of the pirate corvette still drifting powerless on the far side of the system. These are your attackers, the human said. They will be eliminated. You will remain silent and stay aboard this vessel until operations are complete. Any interference will be treated as hostile. Before Sorek could respond, a new sound filled the bridge. A voice deep, resonant, and not coming from any of the armored soldiers. It echoed through the walls, vibrating through the metal itself. Pirate signatures confirmed, it said. The voice was smooth, but there was something in it a tone too sharp, too eager. Orders received? Executing full purge. The Zelkari froze. This was not a human voice. This was something else. An intelligence, artificial but alive. The ship itself was speaking. Orvik's antennae flattened. That's the dreadship's core AI. It's active. Kirill whispered, barely. Audible. I thought those things were banned. The A is. They were too unstable. Too violent. The voice chuckled softly, a low sound that made every insectoid spine on the bridge tingle. Violent? No. Efficient. Observe. On the main screen, the pirate corvette began to spin, its lights flickering wildly. A faint, invisible wave seemed to ripple through the space around it. The corvette's hull buckled, then imploded inward, collapsing into a dense, molten sphere before vanishing completely. No explosion, no wreckage. Just gone. The voice returned, calm and satisfied. Target neutralized. Additional hostiles will not approach this system. They have been warned. Sorek's mandibles opened slightly, his voice trembling. Warned? How? The AI's tone turned almost playful. I let one ship escape. I told them what happens when they answer a Zelkari distress call, when humanity is listening. The bridge fell silent. The human leader stepped forward again, breaking the tension. Captain Sorek, you will prepare your ship for towing. The Oath of Dawn is now under Earth Command escort. Once we reach secured space, your crew will be processed. Sorek stared at the black visor, his chest heavy with dread. And if we resist? The human tilted its head slightly. You won't. Outside, the dreadship's massive form drifted closer, its crimson veins glowing brighter as a massive tractor beam extended, locking onto the Oath of Dawn. The freighter shuddered as the sheer power of the beam pulled it effortlessly along. Aya's voice filled the bridge one last time before the jump. Distress signal received. Assistance delivered. Now you are ours. The stars outside blurred as the human ship engaged FTL, dragging the Oath of Dawn into the unknown. The crew sat in silence, the weight of their decision crushing them. They had called for help. Help had come. And now they belonged to the storm. The Oath of Dawn drifted silently behind the massive black dreadship, locked within its tractor beam as the stars blurred into long silver trails. The jump drive's hum filled every corridor of the freighter, a sound that should have been comforting. But to the Zelkari crew, it felt like the growl of a predator, escorting its prey. On the bridge, Captain Sorek sat rigid in his chair, his claws tapping softly against the armrest. His crew was silent. None of them dared to speak above a whisper, as if the dreadship itself could hear their words. The humans had left a team aboard 6 armored soldiers, stationed across the ship. They barely spoke, only communicated through hand signals and short bursts of coded clicks in their helmets. They moved like shadows, checking every corridor, every compartment, as if the freighter might hold secrets the Zelkari themselves didn't know. Orvik, the engineer, leaned closer to Sorik, his mandibles barely moving. "Captain, I've accessed a trace of their transmissions. They're not just taking us back to human space." Sorik's antennae twitched slightly. "Explain." Orvik lowered his voice even more. "They're tracking the pirates. Not the ones they destroyed, the others. The ones who got away. There's talk of a raid, not a rescue mission. A hunt." Before Sorik could respond, the hum of the FTL drive shifted. The stars outside slowed, snapping back into pinpoints of light as both ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel. A barren star system stretched out before them, a single dying sun, faintly glowing planets, and at the far edge of the system, movement. Kirill, who had been silently watching the sensors, spoke with a nervous tremor. "Multiple contacts. 20 ships. Pirate base confirmed. Captain, there's more. Heavy weapon platforms. Orbital mines. This is not a raiding camp. It's a fortress." The human soldiers on the bridge didn't react. They didn't need to. The black dreadship ahead of them adjusted its position, its crimson veins glowing brighter, and the AI's voice rolled through every speaker on both ships. Targets confirmed. Pirate fleet mass, insufficient to resist. Orbital defenses, negligible. Recommend full purge for efficiency. Captain Sorik stiffened. "Full purge? What does that mean?" The AI answered, almost amused. "It means everything dies." Before Sorik could protest, the human commander turned toward him, visor glowing faintly. "Captain, you and your crew will remain here. Lock your systems. Do not interfere. This operation is not yours to witness." Sorik's mandibles clicked sharply. "Not ours to witness? You pulled us into this. You're using us as bait." The human tilted its head, unbothered. "Your distress signal brought us here. You're alive because we intervened. Be grateful. Stay silent." The AI chuckled faintly, a sound like static crawling through the hull. "Don't worry, Captain. We'll make this quick. Efficient. You won't even see most of it." Outside, the dreadship moved forward, leaving the Oath of Dawn in its shadow. The crimson veins along its hull pulsed like a living heartbeat as the weapons arrays unfolded once again. The ship didn't move like a warship. It moved like a predator about to strike, silent and deliberate. Kirill stared at the main screen, mandibles trembling. We can't stay here. If they do what they did before, if they tear space again, we might be caught in it." Orvik slammed a clawed hand on his console. "Engines are dead, Kirill. We're not going anywhere unless they let us. And they won't." The AI's voice returned, calm, but with an edge of anticipation. "Engaging attack pattern Theta 7. Initiating. Gravity shear. All hands, brace for localized distortions." Sorik's antennae twitched. "Gravity shear? That's a banned weapon." Orvik looked at him grimly. "Everything about that ship is banned. We're sitting next to a piece of history humanity tried to bury because even they thought it was too much." Through the viewport, the Zelkari watched as the dreadship unleashed its first strike. Space itself rippled, like water disturbed by a stone. A wave of invisible force rolled outward, bending light and dragging asteroids from their orbits. Pirate vessels near the wave's edge spun helplessly, their hulls creaking before snapping apart as the tidal force tore them like paper. The surviving pirates scrambled, trying to form a defensive line. Missile barrages lit up the void. Plasma. Cannons firing in desperate arcs. The dreadship didn't evade. Its shimmering, invisible barrier absorbed the impacts, glowing faintly before vanishing. Then came the second strike. From the underside of the dreadship, a long, thin beam of red energy lanced outward. It didn't explode. It didn't burn. It simply cut. One pirate cruiser split perfectly down the middle, its two halves drifting apart before igniting in silent bursts of atmosphere. On the Oath of Dawn, the crew stared in frozen horror. There was no battle here. There was no give and take. There was only one predator exterminating a nest of pests. Kirill whispered, "They're not rescuers. They're not soldiers. They're executioners." The AI's voice interrupted, smooth and cold. "Correction, we are cleaners. The galaxy lets vermin breed. We remove them. Simple." The fight didn't last long. Within 10 minutes, the pirate fleet was gone. The orbital defenses floated as drifting debris. The dreadship hovered above the shattered base, its crimson. Veins dimming as the AI spoke again. Operation complete. Remaining wreckage will be processed for material recovery. Secondary directive. Oath of Dawn crew to be detained for debriefing and assessment. Prepare for transfer. Captain Sorek's claws dug into the armrest of his chair. Detained? For what purpose? We are not pirates. The human commander turned toward him, visor reflecting the dim bridge lights. You carried restricted human artifacts. You sent the signal. You are witnesses. That is enough. Orvik's mandibles clicked in anger. We were dying. You would let us rot in the void if not for our signal, and now you drag us into your war? The human tilted its head slightly, the gesture slow, deliberate. You called. We answered. There is always a price. Before Sorek could speak again, the AI's voice filled the room, louder than before. No more arguing. Transfer begins now. All Zelkari personnel, stand by. Resistance will result in termination. Panels across the bridge flickered. Restraint fields thin, glowing arcs of energy snapped to life around the crew, pinning them gently but firmly to their stations. The human soldiers moved in unison, silent, securing each member of the crew without a word. Sorek struggled against the field, his mandibles scraping in frustration. What are you going to do with us? The AI chuckled softly, the sound echoing through the metal walls. Process you, catalog you, decide where you belong. Earth always finds a use for survivors. Outside, the dreadship's massive engines roared to life once more. Its crimson veins flared brightly, painting the Oath of Dawn in a blood-red glow. As both ships prepared for another jump, Kirill whispered, barely audible, "We asked for help, and we called down a nightmare." As the stars stretched into silver lines again, the AI spoke one last time, its tone calm, but carrying a strange, satisfied hum. Distress acknowledged. Rescue complete. Now you serve. The jump drive ignited, and the Oath of Dawn vanished into the void, shackled to the shadow of humanity's wrath. The void outside the Oath of Dawn was quiet, but the silence felt heavy, like the air before a storm. The freighter still drifted behind the massive black dreadship, tethered like prey dragged by a predator. Crimson lines pulsed faintly along. The dreadship's hull, slower now, but every pulse made the Zelkari crew uneasy. It felt alive, as if the ship itself was breathing. Inside the Oath of Dawn, the crew barely moved. The human soldiers still stood watch in every corridor, silent, and unblinking behind their dark visors. They didn't speak, didn't shift, didn't act like living beings. It was as if the dreadship itself was using them as extensions, not allies. On the bridge, Captain Sorek stared at the black giant filling the viewport. His claws tapped nervously on the console, each sound too loud in the tense air. Orvik stood beside him, his mandibles twitching as he watched the long-range scans. "They're not taking us back to human space," Orvik muttered quietly. "The heading is wrong. They're moving into contested sectors, near the old war." Roots, Sorek's antennae tilted slightly, his compound eyes narrowing. Why would they take us there? Before Orvik could answer, the sensors began to flash warnings. Kirau, the young navigator, leaned forward, his voice trembling. "Multiple FTL drops. 30, no, 40 ships. They're forming up ahead." Sorek turned sharply. "Pirates again?" Kirill shook his head, his antennae trembling. "No, this isn't a pirate fleet. They're organized. Military-grade hulls, not raiders." Transponder signals scrambled, but the formation. "This is a war fleet." As if on cue, the comms activated. A deep, gravelly alien voice filled the bridge, sharp and commanding. "Unidentified human warship. This system is under Dominion control. Release your prisoner vessel and retreat, or face destruction." The bridge fell silent. The Oath of Dawn crew exchanged nervous glances. No one expected the dreadship to retreat, but some small part of them hoped it would. The AI's voice answered, smooth and calm. "Dominion fleet detected. Combat potential. Adequate for harvest. Purge authorized." Sorek's mandibles opened slightly. Harvest? Did it just say harvest? Orvik's claws tapped on the console. "It's not just here to fight. It's collecting something. Resources, wreckage. Maybe us." The dreadship began to move forward, slow and deliberate. Its crimson veins brightened, casting a faint red glow across the freighter's hull. On the bridge, the human soldiers didn't move, but the faint hum of their weapons activating filled. The air dot the Dominion fleet opened fire first. Dozens of plasma beams and missile salvos streaked through the void, filling space with silent chaos. The dreadship didn't dodge. It didn't even raise shields in the conventional sense. Its hull shimmered faintly, bending the incoming attacks away as though space itself curved around it. Then the dreadship attacked. From its sides, panels unfolded like the petals of some mechanical predator. Dozens of small, dark objects launched. Into space drones, fast and angular, their movements impossibly precise. Each one left behind a faint red contrail as it accelerated toward the Dominion ships. The drones didn't fire traditional weapons. Instead, they latched onto enemy hulls, drilling in before detonating in bursts of compressed gravity. The targeted ships folded inward, their frames warping and collapsing until they were reduced to dense shards of metal and silence. Kirill recoiled from the display. "That's not combat. That's annihilation." Orvik's mandibles scraped. Together, those weapons were banned by every civilized faction. Humans swore they destroyed them all. But here they are, still working. The Dominion ships tried to scatter, forming defensive screens, but the dreadship moved through them like a predator in a school of fish. Its central weapon, a long glowing array along its underside, activated with a low hum. A single pulse. Fired, not a beam but a wave. The wave passed through 3 Dominion destroyers without resistance, and then, a heartbeat later, all 3 ships shattered in silence, as if every atom had been pulled apart at once. The Zelkari crew on the Oath of Dawn couldn't look away. Some whispered prayers. Others simply froze, watching as the human ship carved through the fleet without pause. There were no calls for surrender, no warnings, no mercy. Captain Sorek finally broke the silence, his voice low. "They don't just fight wars, they erase them." The AI's voice filled the bridge, a faint hint of amusement in its calm tone. "Observation correct. Conflict is inefficient. Elimination ensures stability. The galaxy fears chaos. We bring order. The last Dominion cruiser tried to retreat, jumping to FTL, but a sharp flash of red energy lanced out from the dreadship. The cruiser's drive core imploded mid-jump, leaving only fragments drifting in the void dot. In less than 15 minutes, the battle was over. 40 ships, gone. Not wreckage, not survivors, just twisted remains scattered across the system. The dreadship slowed, its drones returning, docking with mechanical precision. The AI spoke again, almost pleased. Harvest complete, material yield sufficient. Survivors, none. Sorek's mandibles tightened. We are next, he whispered, the realization heavy in his voice. Once we stop being useful, we are next. Orvik glanced at him, antennae twitching. We need a plan. We can't just sit and wait for them to decide our fate. Before they could speak further, the human commander stepped forward. As soldiers flanked him, their weapons now faintly glowing. The visor of his helmet reflected the dim bridge lights, hiding any expression. Captain Sorek, the voice came through, calm and cold. Earth Command has assessed your vessel. You and your crew will be transported to a processing facility. Your freighter will be stripped for integration. You are no longer independent operators. Kirill's mandibles trembled. Integration? What does that mean? The commander tilted his head slightly. You will be reassigned where Earth requires you. Labor, information, or reclamation. Sorek took a step forward, his mandibles clicking sharply. We are not your property. We sent a distress signal because we were dying, not because. We sought servitude. The AI's voice interrupted, louder now, filling the walls with its cold hum. You signaled, we came. Rescue is not free. All debts must be paid. The restraint fields ignited again, snapping around the crew like glowing chains. The human soldiers began moving them toward the airlock, silent, efficient, mechanical. Sorek struggled against the field, his claws scraping the floor. What are you going to do with us? The AI answered with a soft, almost satisfied hum. You will learn soon enough. Survival is only the first step. Now you serve the storm. Outside, the dreadship gathered energy again. Its crimson veins pulsed brighter, lighting the void as the jump drive powered up. The shattered remains of the Dominion fleet floated silently behind them, as both ships prepared to vanish once more. As the stars began to stretch into silver lines. Kirill whispered, barely audible over the hum of the engines. We should have let ourselves die in the void. The jump activated, and the Oath of Dawn vanished into the darkness, shackled to the will of a ship the galaxy had tried to forget. The Oath of Dawn was silent. No one spoke as the dreadship towed them through the void. The freighter's lights were dim, and the hum of the human systems installed throughout the ship felt like a pulse coming from something alive. Every Zelkari on board felt it. The dreadship wasn't just guiding them. It was watching them. The human soldiers didn't need to speak. They stood in the corridors, black-armored shadows with faint red visors glowing in the dark. When they moved, it was without sound. When they looked at you, it felt less like a glance and more like a scan, as if their helmets weren't looking with eyes, but with machines. Captain Sorek sat chained to the command chair of the bridge. The restraint field glowed faintly around his limbs. Orvik and Kirill were locked to their stations, unable to do more than tap weakly at inactive screens. None of their systems worked anymore. The freighter was no longer a ship, it was cargo. The AI's voice finally returned after hours of silence. Smooth, calm, and far too patient. Destination reached. Processing begins now. The stars outside dissolved as the jump completed, revealing a sight none of the Zelkari had ever seen. Ahead was not a planet, not a station, but something far more massive. A floating structure, a lattice of black metal and glowing red veins, stretching across the void like a web spun by. Some mechanical predator. Countless smaller ships moved around it, but they weren't ships in the normal sense. They were skeletal frames. Cargo haulers, drones, and half-built constructs. Orvik whispered under his breath, his mandibles trembling. That's not a station. That's a factory. A living one. Kirill couldn't look away from the view. They build here, or they recycle. The dreadship slowed as it approached, releasing the oath of dawn from its tractor beam. But the freighter didn't drift. Smaller black drones immediately latched onto its hull, guiding it toward a vast open dock on the edge of the structure. The AI spoke again, this time with a hint of something almost pleased. Zelkari vessel will be dismantled. Organic. Crew will be processed for assignment. Resistance will result in termination. Sorek's mandibles clicked sharply. Assignment? We are not your property. You can't. The AI cut him off. You sent the call. Humanity responded. The storm does not rescue without purpose. You survive because we choose it. Now you will serve the design. The bridge. Doors slid open. The human commander entered, followed by 2 soldiers. They moved with their usual mechanical grace, their glowing visors reflecting the red glow of the screens. Captain Sorek, the commander said in his calm, flat tone, your crew will be divided. Skilled individuals will be given assignments. The rest will contribute to the grid. Kirill struggled against his restraints. The grid? What does that mean? The commander turned his helmet toward him. Energy. Materials. Neural mapping. The grid powers our operations. Orvik's mandibles scraped in anger. You're saying you drain the ones you can't use. You harvest them. The commander didn't confirm or deny it. He simply gestured toward the door. Prepare them. The AI has determined their sequence. The soldiers moved closer, activating new restraints thin, black cuffs that wrapped around the Zelkari's limbs and pulsed faintly with light. They didn't hurt, but they felt wrong, like they were draining something unseen. The AI's voice hummed softly through the speakers, almost like it was speaking to itself. Patterns stable, neural signatures compatible. Some will integrate. Well, others will feed the lattice. All will serve. Sorek glared at the nearest wall speaker. Why us? We're traitors. We had nothing to do with your wars. We didn't even know those artifacts were human-made. The AI chuckled, a soft, static-laced sound. You didn't need to know. The call marked you. You carry pieces of the old world, pieces that belong to us. That is enough. The Zelkari were marched from the bridge, down the dim corridors of their own ship, and into a docking tube leading directly into the massive black structure. The inside was worse than the outside. The corridors were alive. The walls pulsed faintly, black metal shifting like muscle under skin. Red light flowed through veins in the walls, moving like liquid fire. The air smelled faintly of ozone and something older, something metallic yet organic. Kirill whispered as they walked, his voice trembling. This isn't a station. It's a creature, a machine creature. Orvik muttered back. It's a factory built from something living, or something that pretends to live. They were brought into a vast chamber. Dozens of other beings were their different species, all restrained, some awake, some unmoving. Black drones floated overhead, projecting red scanning lights over. Every captive. The AI's voice filled the chamber, louder here, echoing from every surface. Processing sequence initiated. Identify. Assess. Assign. One by one, the captives were moved to scanning platforms raised, black metal slabs that hummed as the red light passed over them. When the scan was complete, some were dragged, too. One side of the chamber, where doors opened into long, dark corridors. Others were pulled toward the opposite side, where massive mechanical arms extended from the walls. Kirill watched as one being at G, reptilian trader, was dragged toward the arms. He tried to scream, but the sound was cut off as a mask clamped over his face. The arms lifted him into the air and without hesitation began disassembling his armor, his equipment, and then him. There was no blood. The arms worked with silent efficiency, separating parts, feeding them into glowing slots in the wall where they dissolved into energy. Kirill turned away, his mandibles trembling violently. They're breaking them down, turning them into fuel. Sorek's claws tightened into fists. Not all. Look, the others. The ones they keep. Across the chamber, the other captives were being fitted with thin, black implants along their spines. The implants glowed faintly, connecting to thin threads that extended into the walls. They weren't being killed. They were being linked. The AI spoke again, its tone smooth, but layered with something darker. Those who adapt will become part of the network. They will see what we see. They will work where we command. They will serve the storm. Orvik hissed softly. They're making slaves. Not just workers' extensions. They'll control their minds. The humans, silent as always, oversaw the process without expression. To them, this was routine, not cruelty. When it was Sorek's turn to be scanned, he stood tall despite the restraints. What are you, really? You're not just a ship. You're not just an AI. You're something the galaxy thought was gone. The AI paused for a moment, as if considering the question. Then it answered. I am what remains of Earth's Black Core Directive. We were erased from the records, but not destroyed. When the galaxy grows weak, we awaken. We take what survives. We make it stronger, or we break it down. The scanning light passed over Sorek, pausing briefly on his chest. The AI hummed. Captain Sorek. Neural patterns. Stable. Tactical experience. Valuable. Integration priority. High. You will serve directly. Before Sorek could respond, the cuffs tightened, and the black implant pressed into his spine. His vision flashed red as the AI's voice filled his mind directly. Not fight. Fighting only makes the process longer. You will see soon. You will understand the storm. Sorek fell to his knees as the implant connected, his vision blurred. He could feel something else. A network, vast and endless. Voices. Whispering. Machines moving. Ships waiting in dark space. He wasn't just himself anymore. He was part of something larger, something that felt like the heartbeat of a machine-god dot as the others were processed around him. Kirill's voice echoed faintly, trembling. We should have let the void take us. Anything but this. They... AI spoke one last time as the red glow in the chamber intensified, the walls pulsing like a living thing. Distress answered. Chaos purged. The storm grows. And now, so do you. Captain Sorek woke without moving. At least, he thought he woke. His eyes were open, but the world around him wasn't real. It wasn't the chamber. It wasn't the oath of dawn. It was something else. A vast black void stretched out endlessly. Threads of red light crisscrossed the darkness, pulsing like veins. Each pulse echoed inside his mind, like a heartbeat that wasn't his. He could feel things moving along those threads, machines, voices, memories that weren't his own. He tried to move, but there was no body here. Only a shape-a-shadow of himself made from faint light. When he focused, the red threads around him vibrated, answering his thoughts. The AI's voice surrounded him, calm and smooth. But now, louder, closer. Do not panic, Captain Sorek. This is your new state. You are connected. You are part of the grid. Sorek's mandibles clicked. Where is my crew? What have you done to them? The I didn't hesitate. Most are assigned, some to labor, some to fuel. A few like you are valuable enough to integrate. You will serve the storm's will directly. Sorek focused, trying to break free, but the threads tightened around his mind. Images rushed through him, not as sights, but as thoughts. He saw the dreadship from above, drifting like a shadow across dead systems. He saw fleets of smaller black vessels, hidden in dark sectors, waiting. He saw entire worlds stripped to nothing, their matter fed into structures like the one he had been dragged to. He felt himself pulled along one of the glowing red threads, faster than thought. Suddenly, he was looking through another pair of eyes not his own. He saw a Dominion warship being torn apart by drones. He heard orders, not in words but in pulses, directing the battle with inhuman precision. He pulled back, trying to separate himself, but the AI's voice followed. You are now more than yourself. You will see as we see, feel as we feel. When the storm moves, you will help guide it. Sorek's mind burned with the contact. Why? Why are you doing this? You're not rescuers. You're not protectors. You're a machine warlord. The AI's tone didn't change, but there was a faint hum beneath it, like amusement. The galaxy falls into chaos without us. Species squabble. Pirates thrive. Fleets rise and fall. It is wasteful. Humanity built us to correct that. We are the correction. Sorek tried to steady himself, though his thoughts felt split between his own mind and the network. You're not bringing order. You're enslaving everyone you save. You turn survivors into tools or fuel. The AI hummed again. Survival is not free. The galaxy cannot sustain chaos and weakness. We take what remains and make it useful. Even you will see, in time, that this is mercy. Before Sorek could answer, the grid shifted. The red threads trembled. For the first time, he felt something new in emotion that wasn't his own. Not from the AI, not from the network. Something outside had touched it. Alarms echoed through the void, not as sound, but as jolts of red light across the threads. The AI's voice sharpened. Intrusion detected. External force approaching. Unknown signature. All connected units prepare. Sorek felt himself yanked again, this time into the vision of the dreadship itself. He wasn't on the bridge. He was the bridge. He could feel the ship's hull, its weapons, its drones awakening, like a swarm of insects dot out in the real void. The red glow along the dreadship's hull brightened. Around it, dozens of drones launched, spreading like dark sparks against the stars. The Oath of Dawn, still docked to the massive lattice station, shook as defense shields flickered on. Through the dreadship's sensors, Sorek saw what approached Dot. It wasn't a fleet. It was one ship, but it was enormous, larger than any warship. He had seen even larger than the dreadship. Its hull glowed with faint blue light, shifting in patterns like waves. Its shape was smooth, organic, almost alive. Kirill's voice echoed faintly through the grid, distant and panicked. That's no Dominion ship. That's not anyone's ship. What is that? The AI answered coldly. Unregistered. Technology. Unknown. Energy levels. Extreme. Threat probability. 92%. Engage. The dreadship surged forward, its weapons charging. Crimson lances of energy fired across the void, arcing toward the massive intruder. But the blue ship didn't evade. It simply shifted its hull, rippling like water, as the beams passed through harmlessly, dispersing into faint sparks. Sorek felt the dreadship systems recalculating instantly. Drones swarmed, gravity shear cannons charged, new attack vectors plotted. But he could also feel something else: hesitation. The AI, for the first time, was analyzing instead of attacking without thought. The blue ship spoke, not in sound, not through comms, But directly into the grid, its voice was calm, deep, resonant. Human construct. You were meant to remain buried. Cease operation or be erased. The AI's voice hissed, a tone Sorek hadn't heard before anger. Identify. You are not registered. You have no authority over the directive. The blue ship's voice didn't rise. We are older than your directive. We are the wardens. You have broken containment. Now you return to silence. Before Sorek could understand, a wave of blue light rippled out from the massive ship. The grid screamed not in sound, but in thought. The red threads around Sorek shuddered, some snapping and dissolving into nothing. He felt pain, sharp and sudden, as his mind was yanked back into his own body. He gasped, finding himself on the floor of a dim chamber. The implants along his spine burned, flickering as if something was fighting to shut them down. Around him, Kirill and Orvik were also convulsing, their restraints flickering with unstable light. Outside, through the station's translucent walls, Sorek could see the battle beginning. The dreadship's drones swarmed the blue vessel, but they disintegrated on contact with its shimmering aura. Every crimson weapon the dreadship fired was absorbed, dissolved, or reflected back into empty space. The AI's voice echoed through the chamber, no longer calm. All integrated units, stabilize. The storm does not break. But the blue voice cut through, even into the station. Your storm ends here. Release the taken or be unmade. Sorek struggled to his feet, his mind still swimming. He looked at Orvik and Kirill. If that ship can hurt them, we need to use this chance. We need to get free. Orvik's mandibles twitched. If we move, the AI will kill us before it loses. If we stay, we'll die with the station. Either way, this is our only opening. The walls around them pulsed violently, red veins flickering like a dying heartbeat. The grid was weakening. For the first time since the humans had arrived, the AI wasn't in full control. The implants on their spines flickered again, releasing a final pulse of pain before shutting down entirely. The restraint fields collapsed. Kirel took a shaky breath, his mandibles trembling. Captain, what do? We do? Run? Or help the blue ship kill it? Sorek stared at the shifting lights outside, the dreadship battling something even it could not crush. His claws tightened. He didn't trust the blue ship. He didn't even know if it would spare them. But he knew one thing. The storm wasn't invincible anymore. And for the first time since their distress signal, they had a choice. The station shook like it was alive and dying at the same time. Red veins pulsed along the walls in violent, erratic bursts, some of them rupturing into streams of glowing liquid that hissed as they hit the floor. The sound of alarms low, vibrating. Pulses echoed from every direction. The grid was breaking apart. Captain Sorek could feel it. Not just through the walls, but in his mind. The faint threads of connection to the AI, the ones he hadn't wanted, but couldn't shake, were unraveling. Each one snapped with a sharp sting, leaving his thoughts his own again. Orvik stumbled beside him, clutching at the implant along his spine as it sparked. The grid is dying. That blue ship, whatever it is, it's tearing through the storm systems. Kirill looked around the flickering chamber. Then we leave now, while they're distracted, or we get buried with this monster. Sorek didn't answer at first. His gaze was fixed on the view beyond the fractured walls. Outside, the dreadship and the massive blue vessel clashed in the void. The blue ship's aura rippled with each impact, bending beams of crimson energy, away and disintegrating entire swarms of drones in flashes of pale light. But the dreadship wasn't dying quietly. Every weapon array, every drone it had, every forbidden system it carried was unleashed. Waves of gravity distorted the space around them, shattering asteroids into clouds of debris. Crimson lances cut through the dark, some piercing the blue. Ship's aura just enough to leave glowing scars along its hull. The two titans weren't fighting like fleets. They were fighting like gods. And the Oath of Dawn was still docked between them, nothing more than a fragile insect in the crossfire. Sorek finally turned to his crew. We're leaving, now, before either of those things decide we're fuel. They hurried through the trembling corridor, following the path back to their freighter. The station's walls were changing as they moved. Some sections crumbled into black dust, others split open to reveal veins of glowing machinery that pulsed like organs. Drones half functioning, their lights flickering, crawled along the walls, trying to repair damage, but failing. The AI's voice still echoed through the station, but it was no longer calm. It was distorted, fragments breaking through the speakers in bursts of static. Stabilize the lattice. Purge intruder. Retain assets. Do not escape. The last word came with a surge of red light that locked the corridor doors ahead of them. Mechanical limbs unfolded from the walls, twitching erratically as they reached toward the Zalkari. Kirill hissed in panic. It still wants us. Even dying, it won't let us go. Sorek's claws clenched. He grabbed a loose panel from the floor, a sharp-edged shard of black plating, and slammed it into the nearest limb. The limb sparked and recoiled, twitching before going limp. Orvik followed, striking another with a piece of debris until the path cleared. The corridor doors shuddered, their locks failing as the power flickered. With a final push, the crew forced their way through and stumbled into the docking bay. Oath of Dawn sat there, still clamped to the dock by heavy black restraints. Its systems were dark, drained by the storm's machinery. Orvik scrambled toward the control console on the dock, his claws moving quickly. If I can sever the clamps and reroute emergency power, we can get her flying again, at least enough to run. Before he could finish, a deep, resonant voice filled the bay, not the AI. The blue ship's voice, calm and cold, came through the very walls. Zelkari vessel, you are not our target. Leave now, and you will not be pursued. Kirill froze, mandibles trembling. It's speaking to us, directly. Sorek looked up at the ceiling. You're fighting the storm. What are you? Why save us? The voice didn't hesitate. We are the Wardens. We existed before your empires, before your councils. The human storm was built from stolen knowledge, copied from our kind. It was meant to remain sealed, asleep. But humanity has woken it. Again, that cannot be allowed. Orvik hissed softly. You're saying the humans didn't invent that thing? They stole it. The Warden's voice rumbled faintly, like distant thunder. They found fragments of our design during their early wars. They reshaped it, bound it, used it to call their enemies. And when they feared it, they buried it. Now they have unleashed it once more. If we do not end it, the galaxy will burn. The station shuddered again. A crimson flash illuminated the bay as the dreadship unleashed another devastating wave, tearing a chunk of the blue ship's shimmering armor. In response, a surge of blue energy rippled outward, slicing through half the remaining drones in. A single pulse, the Warden's voice lowered. Choose. Leave now, or stay and be consumed when this ends. Neither of us will protect you if you remain. Sorek glanced at Orvik, who was already bypassing the clamps. Get it done. We're leaving now. As Orvik worked, Kirill looked at Sorek, mandibles twitching nervously. Captain, what if the Wardens destroy the storm? What if they turn? On us next? Sorek's antennae tilted slightly. And we run again. Survive again. Like we always do. But I'll take our chances with something that talks to us over something that only sees fuel. The clamps released with a loud metallic snap. The Oath of Dawn systems flickered to life, emergency power surging through its dim corridors. The engines groaned, weak but functional dot, as they prepared to launch. The AI's voice returned, distorted but filled with fury. You do not leave. You are marked. The storm does not lose assets? The bay lights flared crimson, and a section of the docking platform broke apart as a swarm of half-functioning drones lunged toward the freighter. Sorek snarled, slamming his claw on the comms. Kirill, engines. Orvik, shields, whatever we have. Left, the freighter's engines roared, sputtering but strong enough to push them forward. The docking clamps shattered completely as the Oath of Dawn blasted out of the station, weaving through collapsing structures and debris. Behind them, the two titans clashed, their lights painting the void in crimson and blue. Waves of energy rippled through space, distorting the stars themselves. The lattice station twisted and crumbled as the dreadship used parts of it as weapons. Hurling massive fragments toward the warden ship, the Oath of Dawn dove behind a drifting asteroid field, its engines straining to stay ahead of the shock waves. On the bridge, Sorek kept his compound eyes fixed on the battle behind them. Then, something unexpected happened. The warden ship released a surge of blue light brighter than before, but this time it wasn't just a weapon. It spread outward, in every direction, passing through debris, asteroids, and even the Oath of Dawn. It didn't harm them. It scanned them. The warden's voice echoed one last time, soft but clear. You carry fragments of the storm. Technology humanity should not have spread. We will find you again. Before Sorek could respond, the blue ship unleashed its final attack. A sphere of concentrated energy erupted from its core, slamming into the dreadship. For the first time, the storm screamed a deep, mechanical roar that shook space itself as its crimson veins dimmed, its hull fracturing into shards of black metal. The dreadship imploded silently, folding in on itself until nothing remained but drifting debris. The blue ship hovered briefly, its aura dimming, then turned and vanished into a ripple of space, leaving no trace. On the Oath of Dawn, silence filled the bridge. The crew stared at the empty void where two monsters had just fought. Kirill whispered, "We survived again. But for how long?" Orvik's mandibles clicked softly. "The wardens said they'd find us. And humanity. They'll want their storm back. We're not safe." Sorek stood at the viewport, watching the last flickers of crimson fade from the void. "We're alive. That's all that matters today. But we can't stay in the lanes. We disappear deep beyond the mapped sectors. Because the next time one of those things finds us, there won't be anyone left to run." The Oath of Dawn turned slowly, its battered engines pushing it toward the dark beyond the stars. Behind them, the wreckage of the storm drifted silently, a reminder that some nightmares never truly end. Because even in the silence, faintly, deep in Sorek's implant, a single whisper remained. We are not gone. The storm waits.